today, and he's going to, I don't exactly know the subject matter, but it's a 5 to 7 minutes. So I've got Cliff coming up.
No. You record. You.
It's recording.
Okay.
I'm Sheriff Phil, Toastmasters, and welcome guests. Picture a scenario where you have to give a speech in a few days. You got your assignment a few weeks ago, and since then you've been putting in the time to research your topic and organize your thoughts in a logical yet exciting, maybe even lovable format. So the only thing that's left to do is just get up to the lectern and start speaking, right? If your goal is to simply meet the minimum requirements of speech making, then yeah, that would be sufficient. But if your goal is to try to deliver a speech that can be fully appreciated and accurately reflect the time that you've invested in that speech, then you want to rethink or think a little bit more about the preparation and practice that you put into it. Because public speaking is like sports. They are psychomotor skills. And like kicking a ball or shooting a puck or running a race, athletes know that there's more to performance than simply showing up to the event. There's a lot of time that's invested beforehand. And it's the same is true, for public speaking. So what I'm going to be discussing are some guidelines that we can follow when you prepare for your next speech. And I'm going to concentrate on 2 areas in particular. One is speech rehearsal, and then the second is going to be making improvements to your speech. I'm also aware of the irony of me preparing for a speech on speech preparation. Now everybody knows the adage, practice makes perfect, and this is generally true, but it's also true that relentless practice can be frustrating, and in some cases can even undermine a performance. So there are some rehearsal methods that have shown to be very effective in getting the most out of the limited time that you have to prepare. Now the first one is that you want to practice ideas, not words. And what that means is when you're practicing a speech, you want to concentrate on remembering the ideas that you're trying to convey as opposed to the words of the speech itself. Because what happens is if you do the latter, then the speech can then start to sound pre-recorded or a little mechanical. Additionally, when you try to rely on saying a speech word for word, it prevents you or inhibits you from being able to connect with the audience, because your focus is no longer on the audience themselves, but instead on the words of your speech. The third thing is that when you rely on memorization, it limits your ability to be able to improvise or recover in the case that you may have a hiccup or bump in the road. So now there may be times when you have, say, a specific quotation or a statistic that you want to cite. In that case, you can read it off of a flashcard or use a visual aid, and that's fine. But generally speaking, the rest of your speech should have a more conversational tone, and you do that by focusing on communicating your ideas as opposed to memorizing a script. The second thing that you want to keep in mind when rehearsing your speech is that what you can try to do is read your speech silently to yourself as opposed to out loud. And this is something that experienced speakers will do, especially when they first are practicing a speech. And the reason why is that when you're reading a speech to yourself silently, it now becomes mental rehearsal or a form of visualization, which is shown to be very effective in getting the most out of a person's performance. Athletes do this all the time. Additionally, when you do silent reading, it gets you away from the frustration that can sometimes occur from poor or faulty verbal delivery. So the third thing is that when you practice a speech, you want to start from the beginning and finish it right to the end. If you stumble, what you don't want to do is to stop and then go right to the beginning again, because what happens then is you have a speech that has a beginning that has been over-rehearsed and an ending that has been unrehearsed. So what you want to do instead is when you reach a little bit of a hiccup, you stop briefly, make a bit of a note in your script, and then keep on going until you finish at the end. And once you've finished, you can go back to your notes, take a look at the rough areas, try to smooth them out, and then start from the beginning again, and then just repeat as many times as you need. Now when you are trying to improve your speech, there are a couple of things that you can try to keep in mind. One is that you want to improve your speech gradually. If you try to fix your speech in one fell swoop, that's overly ambitious and it's pretty much impossible to do. So what you want to do is instead focus on one particular area that you want to work on. It can be body language, it can be vocal inflection, it can be pacing of your speech. You work on that as you rehearse the speech, and then once you've mastered that area, move on to the next area that you want to improve on. And then you just repeat as many times as you need. And what you'll find is that as your speech improves, your confidence will improve accordingly, in parallel. And then finally, with respect to improving your speech, another thing that you want to try to do is get feedback. So deliver the speech to your friends or family, try to get their opinion on what they think of your speech. Or you can join Toastmasters and do the same thing. But barring that, another thing that you can try to do is record yourself, either as an audio tape or a video recording, and then use that as a way of self-evaluation so that you can get a perspective outside of your own body. So proper rehearsal techniques, methodical speech or speech improvement tips. By following these guidelines, you can make the most out of your practice and preparation times in order to get you to your peak speaking performance. And just like the marathon runner that scouts the course, trains in advance, and is primed to compete, you too will also be assured, confident, and ready to give your best of your speaking abilities. I'm sure.